This is how I look at sales. Sales is the process of solving people's problems in exchange for money. That's how I view it. Someone needs to have a problem. There's a huge asterisk on that part. They need to perceive it's a problem for them. You need to connect with them. You help them solve their problem. They pay you for that service. That's what sales is, in my definition.
You are listening to the MSP Security Playbook, the show where modern MSPs come to sharpen their strategy, streamline operations, and secure their growth. I'm your host, Jacob Hazelbaker, BDR at Heimdal Security, where we help MSPs win with unified, AI-powered cybersecurity solutions. Today, we're diving into one of the most critical and most often avoided aspects of running and scaling an MSP: sales. For many MSP owners, sales can feel like a guessing game. The leads aren't flowing, the outreach falls flat, and the growth you plan for? Slower than expected. But what if selling didn't have to feel like guesswork, or like selling at all? Our guest today is Michael Bakaic, founder of Iceberg Cyber, and someone who's built his business around helping MSPs ditch the excuses, dial in their outreach, and close more deals faster. Michael brings a no-fluff playbook-driven approach to MSP sales. In this episode, you'll hear Michael walk us through one of his proven sales playbooks and tackle listener-submitted hot seat question on breaking through outbound sales fatigue. It's practical, punchy, and loaded with advice you can act on immediately. But first, let's kick things off with today's threat briefing. Heimdal Security cybersecurity advisor and former cyber detective sergeant, Adam Pilton, take it away.
Thanks, Jacob. Imagine this scenario. It's a regular Tuesday at 9 a.m. and your finance systems suddenly freeze. 30 minutes later, a leak site posts samples of your payroll and HR data. By lunchtime, your public site and VPN gateways are being slammed by traffic you didn't invite. And before the afternoon's out, customers, partners, and even a journalist get direct messages claiming your company won't protect them unless you pay. In the next 5 minutes, I'll show you exactly how that happens and how to make sure it never derails your uptime promise. Here's this episode's threat brief. Ransomware crews and their affiliates have moved beyond encrypt and extort. The new playbook stacks 4 levers of pressure. First, they encrypt data to halt operations. Next up, they threaten to leak sensitive information if you don't pay. Then they open a DDoS front to keep you offline. And finally, they harass the people who trust you. Customers, partners, employees, even the media, to make the whole thing as public and painful as possible. According to the latest Akami 2025 insights, this quadruple extortion approach is still emerging, but ramping up, with double extortion still the most common baseline. The hardest hit region right now is APAC, where complex multi-front campaigns are landing most aggressively. And the attacker toolkits are evolving too. Crews are already using AI and large language models to automate planning, generate harassment content at scale, and coordinate these parallel pressure tracks, so they hit at once instead of in sequence. Here's how a real incident unfolds. It starts with initial access, phishing a vulnerable service or stolen credentials that lands them a foothold. They move quietly, map your high-value stores, and siphon the data they'll need for leverage. When they're ready, they detonate. Encryption, servers, hypervisors, and network shares. Time to catch you at your slowest. A branded leak site listing goes live, a countdown clock, sample files, and a negotiation channel to pull you in. Almost immediately, a DDoS barrage hammers your website, your login pages, maybe even your API endpoints, so your customers feel the outage as much as you do. Then the fourth lever kicks in. Targeted messages and social posts to your stakeholders, customers, suppliers, the media, claiming you're hiding a breach and can't be trusted. Each deadline you miss escalates the pressure. More data leaks, bigger DDoS waves, broader harassment. That's the extortion loop. Encrypt, leak, disrupt, and shame until you pay or you contain it. So here's what you need to do. First, keep immutable offline backups and rehearse restores, including hypervisors and domain controllers, so you can turn the lights back on without negotiating. Limit the blast radius in advance, segment AD, hypervisors, and backup networks, clamp down service account privileges, and watch for the staging tails, such as mass archive creation and long-haul transfers out of hours. Next, treat DDoS as part of ransomware, not a separate beast. Put always-on protection in front of web, VPN, and critical APIs. Pre-build the runbooks that shift traffic. Rate limit abusers. Keep the status page honest and rehearse with your provider, so failover and comms work under stress. Now, cover the harassment lane. Bake crisis comms into your instant response with pre-approved external statements, exec talking points, and a customer FAQ you can publish fast. And give customers a clear report abuse channel, so your team, not the attacker, owns the conversation. Finally, harden identity and exposure before you ever hit an incident. Require phishing-resistant MFA for admins and high-risk roles, enforce device health and conditional access, and decide in advance where you stand on negotiation, law enforcement notification, and sanctions compliance. That's how you make 4 levers of pressure fall flat. They're not just encrypting your data, they're orchestrating pressure across every audience you depend on. Plan for 4 fronts: recovery, DDoS resilience, crisis communications, and stakeholder protection. Stay sharp. Catch you in the next threat brief. Back to you, Jacob.
Michael Bakaic, thank you for your time, sir.
My pleasure, Jacob. Well done on the pronunciation.
Oh, thank you. I try. Yep. I appreciate your time today. You're so well versed on sales in particular, which I find interesting, especially given your background. So could you give our audience a little bit more context about who you are and how you came to be where you are now?
So my name's Mike. You all know me from the current startup that I have called Iceberg Cyber, where we help managed service providers use cybersecurity as fun lead magnets to kickstart their sales process. In a previous life, before I learned how to love sales, I was an engineer. Technically, I'm still an engineer. For the Canadians among us, I have my iron ring here. That's the signal of an engineer in Canada. I had a previous tech company that I started with a friend of mine. We were doing the quintessential tech startup maneuver where 2 engineers tried to build a company. Both of them did not have enough courage to like sales. And we spent 6 years burning through money and not selling anything because we were misguided in thinking that the product would sell itself. That's never the case. No product sells itself. And we learned that the hard way, losing a lot of money. That was a very expensive lesson to learn. So that's sort of like the background in a nutshell. I am still an engineer, but I had that strict technical engineer mindset that was afraid of sales. And I say it very emotionally. Like, I was afraid of sales. I was afraid of rejection. I was afraid of someone saying no to me. But that slippery slope led to complete failure. And it took me bottoming out and then going further lower. And then fortunately someone showed me the path to smarten up, and I learned how to like sales, because it's not just like a switch you can flip. You need to learn how to like it and what it really is, and we definitely will touch upon that in this show.
This is exactly why I'm so excited to chat with you today. So many MSPs struggle with this too. I've talked with a lot of MSP owners who started out like you on the tech side, be it engineering or IT or cybersecurity, and then they start their business and they realize, oh, I actually need to do marketing. I need to do sales somehow. And that's just a complete barrier for them. So I love that that's the focus of your work now. You experienced that the hard way, as you described, and now you're helping others avoid that trap. So I would love to know, for your advice, what would be the #1 mindset shift that MSPs need to make if they want to start generating consistent leads?
This is how I look at sales. Sales is the process of solving people's problems in exchange for money. That's how I view it. Someone needs to have a problem. There's a huge asterisk on that part. They need to perceive it's a problem for them. You need to connect with them. You help them solve their problem. They pay you for that service. That's what sales is, in my definition. And I got a loud mouth and I say it a lot, so hopefully more people get on that bandwagon. That's why I like the sales process now. This is how I've learned to like it. And I've read the books. They've taught me, put my own spin. That's how I've taught myself to like sales is it's a process of solving people's problems. And if you solve people's problems, they'll pay you to do it. The better you can solve their problem, the bigger the problem, the more you get paid. That's the sales process. So the first step in this process for any managed service provider listening is that switch in your mind needs to go off to on. Sales is the process of solving people's problems in exchange for money. It's not slimy. It's not conniving. There's no deception required. You can't sell someone that doesn't have a problem. There's no force feeding here. If your job as the business is to find people that have problems and solve those problems, and then those people pay you money. If we get pretty good, we find a bunch of people with the same problem, and we solve that problem, really well, and we make good margins.
That's a good way to put it. You also touched on something in your way to describe that I've been wondering about. A lot of times we have leads, and some of them might not be so hot. They might not even be warm, frankly, rather cold leads. So I think you're really good at describing how to help MSPs convert cold leads to warm ones. So if you could briefly walk us through one of your playbooks for converting cold leads to warmer leads.
So lead magnets is one mechanism that can help lubricate that process because it gets people, lead magnets can get people to perceive their problem and then engaging in a conversation with you about it. There's three main types of lead magnets. Reveal a problem style. So this would be your cost calculator, security checkup, those reveal problems, detect something's wrong, and the prospect is self-serving in this case. They can use let's say it's like the Microsoft cost calculator or the insurance cost calculator on your website. They go through the process, then they realize I'm overspending on Microsoft. Now the problem is in their mind. That's a reveal a problem style lead magnet. My CyberScore stuff is a reveal a problem style lead magnet. There are many of these. Another second type of lead magnet, free sample. Costco taught us how powerful that is. Give someone a free taste of something, and they realize how much better their life is with the free sample. You've just uncovered a problem for them because now they perceive that their current status is bad. Their life with the free sample is better. There's a difference that they could make for you. And then the third one is free first step out of a multi-step process. So in the MSP world, give away the password manager or cyber awareness training or some part of your onboarding process that you were going to do with all clients anyways. That's the free first step. The prospect realizes that their life is now better than it was before. So you've shown them a differential. There's a problem before because their life is better now and they want to keep the better life. Those are three types of lead magnets. Lead magnets are the salesperson's tool to try and help the prospect perceive that they have a problem. Their before and after. The after gets better than the before. That's our tool. You can manifest this in many different ways. They all get super powerful when the salesperson knows the problems that the prospects have. The better you know their problems, the better you can design the lead magnet, because ideally the lead magnet solves one of their actual problems. Like if you're talking to accountants, and accountants quintessentially overpay on Microsoft, then giving them a Microsoft cost calculator would work for their accounting brains, show them, hey, there's money to be saved. You're overpaying for Microsoft services. You're paying for both Calendly and Booking. There's a great example, which I used to do. That you speak to an accountant and say, hey, we made this cost calculator for accountants specifically to show you if you're overpaying on Microsoft services. And now the accountant uses your little lead magnet, realizes that they've been overpaying. You revealed the problem for them. And now you can say, hey, now that you see that you're overpaying, is this a big deal for you? Do you care that you're paying $300 a month more than you should? That's a discovery question. If they say, I don't care. Okay, great. So that lead magnet didn't work because they still don't perceive that they have a problem. Don't force the subject. Come up with a better lead magnet. Or if they say, shoot, I didn't realize that I was paying $300 more than I should. You're on your way to revealing their problem for them. Now you just need to keep going. What would you do with the extra $300? Let's put it here. I know that accountants usually get a good return on their technology if they invest $300 into this. So this is what I propose. There's a good conversation to have with an accountant. And it's all based on this problem discovery.
That's interesting. So you not only bring them in with lead magnets to help them see what their problem might be, but also then once you are talking with them and it's clear they do have a problem, at the end of it, you describe through those discovery questions, you show them what they could be doing with the extra money, the extra time they could be saving.
This is all part of the process for you. Like, you tie yourself to the good things in their life.
Another thing I've been dying to ask you is a lot of MSPs, they start out small. They're able to really have a lot of personal touch, one-on-one time with their clients, really personalize it. So one of the problems I've realized MSP owners especially run into as they grow their business is how do they still scale their sales while maintaining somewhat of a personal touch as they always have with their clients?
Well, the most powerful move that you could have is the business owner / founder being the key person in the sales process. Because in most cases, small MSPs, which are like 80% of the MSP world, so most people are small, 10 employees or less, most of the time, those MSPs are serving other small businesses. So you're talking to the decision maker at the other small business. It's a huge power move for the founder of the MSP to talk with the other founder / business owner of the client. Like they like that parlay decision maker to decision maker. It's also a very powerful move if I cold call you and said, hey, Jacob, listen, I started this IT company to help people in my neighborhood. Can I tell you about it for 30 seconds? Like that emotional opener on a cold call or like an in-person event, way better than I'm a salesperson, I'm calling you, blah, blah, blah. No, there's a huge power move in the founder brand. When you need to move away from that, you just need to write your SOP and try and capture what aspects of the founder brand the salesperson can embody. You refer to the business owner. Hey, Mike is our founder. We grew this company for the last 5 years. We'd love to have a conversation with you and tell you about X. Or we serve accountants that usually have these problems. Our founder's going to run a little webinar on how accountants can solve those problems. Would you like to come and talk to them? That kind of thing. So you can still infuse the sales process with the attributes of the founder brand that had been working for you, delegate some of the tasks, and then the founder's got to still come for the second appointment and the closing maybe. Maybe they still need to come for the first time appointment. That's okay. You can figure out how to make it work in the schedule. Remember that, like, when most MSPs are making this jump between, like, they cross over the 10 employees at the MSP and they now need like 1 or 2 salespeople. It's not like you're doing 4 to 6 new clients per month. That's still astronomical numbers. We're talking like 1 or 2 closed deals, 2 or 3 first-time appointments per week. Founder can still do that. There are other aspects of their MSP operation that they can delegate first and keep the founder in the sales process.
And so let's say you're an MSP that has 0 leads, 0 momentum. What advice would you give for them to do in the first 30 days?
Let's just say you're starting today and you say, Mike, I need sales. Great. Every single person does, so you're in good company. I would tell you that you know more people than you think on paper. So let's go through your phone. There's a list of contacts. Let's go through your email inbox. Like, go through your existing contacts on your phone and in your email. Those are people that you know. Put them in Excel. Write down their names, write down their contact information, and then go do some research about them to like categorize. This person runs a small business. This person doesn't run a small business. Find all of the suspects. Okay, there's a untapped list of leads there. That's your first set of leads. Those are warm. You know them already. We're going to go through them one by one and figure out something to say to them. They're either going to be a suspect, like they might have a problem that you can solve. That's a suspect. So they might go in the suspect bin. They might go in the networking bin. Like maybe they don't work maybe you only want to serve accountants and they don't work at an accounting company. That's fine. They definitely know accountants in the area. If they live in, like let's say you qualify them, they live in your small town, you live in the small town, you want to serve accountants in the small town. This contact probably knows an accountant, so they go in the networking bin. So you got your suspects, you got your networking. You're going to contact all the people that you marked as networking, and you say, hey, Jacob, it's Mike. I just started this business. I help accountants achieve this with technology. So what accountants do you know? And they're going to say, you're going to say, yeah, I know one. Hey, can you send a two-way message between you and me? Intro me to your accountant. If your accountant's got this problem, I can probably help them with it. Send me an intro. That's it. And if they're a suspect, you're going to say, hey, Jacob, I was going through my list. I just started a company that helps accountants solve this problem with technology. So if you know any accountants that have that problem, send me an intro. Now, you're an accountant, so I'm doing sort of a meta thing to say, like, I help people like you, so do you know any people like you? And usually they say, yeah, I'm a people like me. I have that problem. And it's a nice way of saying that. Or they say, I actually have a friend that mentioned they had that problem. Or they'll say, no, that's fine. Then you're going to follow up with them later. But that's your initial lead list, is the people that you already know. Everyone knows somebody. You got contacts in your phone. Like, I don't even know how many telephone numbers I got in my cell phone anymore. Everyone's got telephone numbers in their cell phone. Everyone has emailed people before, personally or professionally. Like, if you just started the business yesterday, then go to your personal email. Find your contacts. Far fewer people know you than you think. So solve that problem first. Just tell everyone the types of problems that you solve. And you might get lucky, but you got to be disciplined enough to spread the word in order to get lucky. Because 1 out of the 1,000 people in your contacts book might say, funny that you called me. I was just talking to Jerry. Jerry has that problem. And it's going to feel like luck, but it's only going to happen after the 900th person that you talk to. You got to have the discipline to get through the 900, and then it's going to feel like luck. And they're going to say, yeah, I act funny that you should call me. I do have that problem. What should I do about it? Well, I solve problems like that. Let me show you. That's what I would do. I'm quite literally doing that for 3 of my clients. Iceberg Cyber makes lead magnets. I'm helping 3 of them get the word out about their services. That's where we start, with their warm contacts, 1-to-1. Contacting warm connections, 1-to-1. Too few people want to do that, but that's the hard work, and it's the highest likelihood that it will work for someone.
I love that approach. You lead with the problem that you help people solve, and then you ask them if they know anyone who might have that problem, might also need it solved.
This whole process is about solving problems, right? So just lead with the problem. You can't lead with the solution because no one wants to hear about your solution. Like, literally no one wants to hear about it. They want to hear about their problems. They relate to the problems because that's what they have.
That is so true. And the way you described those first 30 days, especially going through your warm leads, the people you know, going through that process, I think that's really interesting because I noticed on LinkedIn you have a ton of followers. You're producing a lot of really good content on there that's relevant to people, speaks to them. So I was curious, for MSPs, how do you recommend that they leverage social platforms like LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn, you can connect with someone that you kind of know, and they see your face, and then they'll see your content. That makes them like lukewarm. So you and I are connected on LinkedIn. We kind of know each other. Like, we met a couple weeks ago. We kind of know each other. But if I were to message you 2 weeks from now after you see all of my content, and I say, hey, Jacob, listen, I help small MSPs with their sales process because most small MSPs hate sales. So I help them love sales so that they can make that money so they can have a business. Do you know any small MSPs? You're going to say, yeah. Hey, do you know any small MSPs that hate sales but still need to make money or else they'll go out of business? And you're going to say, yeah. Hey, would you mind giving me an intro? And then you would gauge whether you care enough about me to spend the social capital to make the introduction, because that's what I'm asking you to do. I'm not asking you to give me money. I'm asking you to spend some social capital and introduce me to someone. That's you and I are room temperature or lukewarm. That's a lukewarm one-to-one contact, and that's what LinkedIn allows you to do is create these lukewarm contacts, taking random cold people on the internet, connecting with them, showing them your value by posting free content. They learn about what you do and the kind of problems you solve. That warms them up a little bit. And then you earn the ability to message them and say, hey, Jacob, I solve this problem for this type of people. Do you know anyone like that? That's a lukewarm one-to-one connection.
I love
so
the framing.
that's why I use LinkedIn exactly, because now I have almost 12,000 lukewarm connections that I could message one-to-one. That's a lot of one-to-one messages. So I'm still doing the one-to-many. Warm one-to-many is my content. Like, you see my content, you see it, and 12,000 other people see it at the same time. That's warm one-to-many. But that's warming you up more and more, so that at some point when you and I have a one-on-one interaction, like we are doing right now, we know each other a little bit more than strangers.
Yep.
So that's how I would use LinkedIn. Like, I preach this to tons of MSPs, including my own, is use LinkedIn because it's an effective way, as are some other social media platforms, but LinkedIn has its attributes. It's a very effective way to grow your lukewarm connections and slowly warm them up so that you have more lukewarm people to contact, because that's definitely better than cold.
And so for the last question I have for you, it's actually from an MSP. We call this section our MSP Hot Seat. So an MSP wanted to ask you, we've hit a wall with outbound sales. Our cold emails and LinkedIn messages are getting ignored. How can we cut through the noise and actually book meetings with qualified leads?
Okay, let's go back to the fundamentals. The whole purpose of sales is solving people's problem in exchange for money. So there's no trick here. There was no trick question in this part. If people are not engaging with your outbound activity, it's because you're not connecting your outbound activity to their problem. So they're ignoring you. Because if Jacob broke his foot and a doctor cold called him and said, "Hey Jacob, I'm driving around town resetting people's feet. I'll give you 50% off a cast." Jacob would say, "Whoa, I have a problem because I have a broken foot." So the doctor's cold calling would work, and they the prospect Jacob would engage with the outbound sales. Clearly, and this is not like a critique or anything, but clearly, if no one's replying to your message, they either didn't get the message or they didn't like the message. With cold email, 9 times out of 10, they didn't get the message. So for everyone listening, cold email is technically very difficult because Microsoft does not want your email to go to someone's inbox. So you're fighting that battle. But let's just say that the recipient actually saw the email and they read it and they ignored it. It's because the email contained nothing that related to the problem that they had. Because if they really had a problem and you sent them an email saying, "Hey, I solved the problems that you have," they probably would reply. Same with LinkedIn. LinkedIn's better because you know that they get the message. Maybe they see it or not. Not everyone goes on LinkedIn to read messages, but it's a higher probability than cold email. But if you're sending messages to people on LinkedIn and they ignore you, clearly you didn't send them a message that they cared about. So this is the hardest part about sales, is like you have to know other people's problems so well that you can put the words in their mouth to describe the problem. This is what separates like people that just bang on doors and get rejected to closers. Because closers know people's problems. And if you really know their problems, you can say, "Hey, Jacob, people like you have this exact problem and they try and solve it in this way and it doesn't work for these 3 reasons. Does that sound like you? And you're going to say, holy smokes, I just struggled with that problem this morning. How does Mike know? Because Mike knows about people that have these problems. Now, I know that your problem so well. I have a way that you can solve the problem. Do you want to hear about it? You would probably at least say, okay, tell me about it. You may not put your money down, but you will at least reply, say, okay, tell me about it. That's it. Like, this is the whole part about sales. So if you get your mind, just like infuse it with this, sales is about solving people's problems in exchange for money. The better you know the problem, the better the whole sales process is. One day I will have a t-shirt that says, and ye shall know their problems, and their problems will set you free. Because the better you know their problems, the better this whole process is. So, for the person that sent in this question, I feel you. Because I know what it's like to send 10,000 emails with 0 replies. Try something other than cold email, because cold email has a systemic disadvantage in that Microsoft and Google don't want your emails in someone's inbox. So you're fighting against the spam filters. But let's say you're using LinkedIn. Let's say you send 10 LinkedIn messages a day. I just downgraded. Like, send 25 LinkedIn messages a day to the people that you already know. And do that for like a month. And if no one replies, at least you can tell yourself, something's wrong with my messaging because no one replied. And if you're sending a paragraph about all the things that you do, it's no surprise why no one replied, because no one cares about what you do. You need to relate it to their problems. But if you write a message about your suspect's likely problem, like you've studied accountants in your area, you know that 9 times out of 10 accountants in your area struggle with this thing, and you send 25 messages a day, say, hey, Jacob, I know you're an accountant in my area. I work with accountants in the area. They all struggle with this thing because it doesn't work like this, and they've tried this, and it doesn't work for them. Are you struggling with that? And if you did your homework, some likely people will reply. If you didn't do your homework and the message resonates with no one's going to reply. And that's the signal to you that you don't know the problem well enough. You got to go learn more about it.
Michael Bakaic, I really appreciate your time today. I love that you hit on a topic that's so painful for so many MSPs. Sales is really hard. It's uncomfortable a lot of times. And I really appreciate your time today and providing really, really solid advice.
My pleasure, Jacob. Thanks for having me on the show.
I really enjoyed my conversation with Michael Bakaic today. So what really stuck with me from my conversation was Michael described the sales process as being the process of solving people's problems. That, I think, is really relevant. You're not trying to sell them something. You're helping them. You're solving a problem, alleviating their pain point, and showing them what they could be doing with the same amount of time and money they're currently spending. And the other piece I thought was really interesting was as MSP grow, as the MSP goes from being a one-man operation, a one-person business to something bigger with more employees, how does the owner scale with that? And how do they scale their sales and maintain all that personal touch they had before? Well, I thought it was fascinating that he said, as an MSP owner, if you're going to outsource something, you have to outsource some of the tech side that you were doing. Because the MSP founder, the MSP owner needs to stay in the sales cycle, in the sales pipeline. And I think that's exactly what a lot of MSP owners don't want to do. Sales is uncomfortable a lot of times. It's not something a lot of MSP owners enjoy. And so I think that's why it's so important to remember that even if you grow your MSP from 1 person to 5 or 10 or 20 or more, it's still good as the founder, as the owner, to join perhaps one client call as you onboard them, to still go to those conferences, to be the face of your company, because that really does sell. That helps a lot. The other big piece I thought was super fascinating, though, was how he described if you're starting out, if you don't have many leads and you want to get your first few, especially in those first 30 days, what do you do? He described that as a process of looking through your phone, finding all the people you know, making a list in an Excel sheet with those people, and then reaching out to them. But the key part I thought was he didn't say to reach out to them to sell your services, to sell your business product to people you know. No. Instead, he said, reach out to the people you know in order to ask them if they know anyone, if they know someone else who is facing this problem, because you're now someone who helps people solve that problem. I love that because he described it as a process of lead with the problem, not with the solution. And then the people you know might say, hey, yeah, I know someone else facing the same problem that you are now trying to solve. I'll introduce you. So I hope you really enjoyed my conversation with Michael Bakaic today. I learned a lot. If I ever start an MSP, I'll be definitely implementing many of these pieces of advice as well. So thank you, and I hope you have a great day. That's a wrap on this episode of MSP Security Playbook. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. If you found today's insights helpful, be sure to follow the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. It helps other MSPs find the playbook and level up their security game. Got a question you want us to tackle in the MSP Hot Seat? Or a topic you'd like to hear more about? Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay sharp, stay secure, and keep building the future of your MSP business.